Hello and welcome to Defense Diaries. I am your host, Bob Mata, and this is our Thursday night edition of Awesome Lawyers. I'm really excited. We've got two guys that I just adore, both of them power litigators, one in the civil arena, one in the criminal arena. Both of them are trial attorneys. Make no mistake about that. Rich Schoenstein, big New York lawyer guy, walking around in the big city, dominating in the courtrooms, winning huge settlements for his clients or defending for his clients, whatever the case may be. He's a trial lawyer. You've probably seen him on Court TV. You've probably seen him on Law and Crime. You've probably heard him on Sirius. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's an amazing, amazing attorney. Really, really bright guy. And you know what I love about him? He calls him like he sees it, and he never bends. So you got to respect the hell out of that. I know a guy like that, and you're looking at him because I don't give a shit what anybody says. I'm going to have my own opinion. Take it or leave it. Our next guest is Joshua Schiffer, who I love, adore. You guys got to see him a couple of weeks with us. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. He was on. Great trial lawyer, criminal defense guy out of the beautiful, beautiful state of Georgia. He's unbelievable. You see him all the time on Court TV. He hangs with the judge and Michael. He's on with Vinny almost every Wednesday. The dude's brilliant. I'm really excited to have both these guys on. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on in this crazy, crazy true crime world that we're all so enamored with. So, Rich, Josh, what is up, fellas?
Don't forget, Justice Kitty literally heard the intro and she got up and was like, "Oh, make sure I get my stretch on. Where do I sit?
Move your Justice Kitty needs no introduction, Josh. We all know.
I have no pets. I have no pets here. I feel bad.
Oh, you need an office pet, man. That's what a great thing.
Tarantula
rule.
Yeah, I mean tarantulas terrify me. Spiders in general horrify me. It's like I've never gotten over that fear.
That's not my favorite.
They're not my thing, man. It's like I can deal with almost every other insect except spiders. Just are not it for me. Yep. So what's going on, fellas? What's good? What's your day been like? Busy working. You guys been busy tweeting.
Yeah, I closed out a long-standing single vehicle accident DUI is not a DUI, which is what we call a win.
A win.
In Georgia, DUI is really a crime, and you get it reduced below that, it's a traffic ticket. And we did it in a way that involved, some insurance, and it was a little bit of complications, but we got a great result. And then I've got a particularly onerous and difficult bench warrant issue in a rural county that is known to be very challenging. And this afternoon was a lot of thoughtful and considerate emailing. Yes.
That's and look, like people, if you don't know, if you get a DUI conviction in this country, there are numerous countries that they will not let you in.
It's now the travel as much as it is the punishment, especially in the first DUI. Almost every state has adopted this kind of, your first one, we're gonna let you keep your license and you'll jump through some hoops. That's because the second and subsequent, man, shooting fish in a barrel. They're gonna nail you to the floor on the second or third. But DUI now, there's a whole host of countries. Nope, no entry.
Canada.
You're cooked.
You can't get it up north. I mean, they don't want us anyway now, but you can't. You got a DUI conviction, you're a no-go in Canada. So you got that Canadian fishing trip all planned out, and you got that little Dewey in your back pocket. Forget about it, buddy.
We get the call. It's literally part of our internal process working with the client, because one of the reasons you go with lawyers that have done things for a long time is they learn the little minutia things that you only learn when you see it. So when we do DUIs, which we try not to do very many DUI pleas, it's part of the, hey, I know this is what the state's going to tell you. Here's everything else. And if you're going to Japan, you're not going to Japan anymore.
No.
you are not going to Canada. Yeah, this is how the insurance really works. Here's what to do in the future. Like, get good advice, because DUI is one of those, and why everybody knows DUI. It's one of those crimes that literally affects everybody. Your mom gets them, your grandmother, your kid, everybody in America who drinks, which is a large number of Americans. You have no clue how low 0.08 is. 0.08, if you can feel it, they can test it.
And here's the bottom line. If you live in an area that is even remotely civilized and you're not using Uber, change your life.
And that's changed the industry entirely, because as the numbers declined, the aggression increased. So young people don't get DUIs. Most of my DUIs are 35 plus.
Yeah, 100%. Rich, what was your day like? What'd you do?
Well, I was, leading the exciting life of a civil litigator, working on a 35-page post-arbitration brief that we have to send to an arbitrator following a 6-day evidentiary hearing. Yeah. Very exciting. Reading some case law, trying to settle a couple of matters, revised a settlement agreement, drafted a little bit of a nasty letter to somebody that we're going to send out in the morning. And I spent an hour on court TV. I hung out with Michael and the judge for an hour.
Love it.
I did that.
I did that as well today. I filled in for Jack around lunch.
Yeah, I saw you guys both dipped your toes into the little court TV action today. That's always fun.
Which trial were you on, Rich?
Oh gosh, I've got to reveal my lack of knowledge. It's the woman who's accused of conspiring to kill her husband.
Yeah.
And her daughter was on the stand today. But as far as I can tell, the only reason they put her daughter on the stand is to say to the jury, well, her daughter doesn't think she did
it. we had not the most exciting stuff to cover. And, for people that reverse roles with us every once in a while, we're excited. We get to get on and, we're sitting there and you're paying attention. Some courts just, you wish it was a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, these cases have a lot of witnesses, and some of the witnesses are like, this is not the most important witness. The defense is putting on her daughter. This is not the key to the case.
Yeah, it seemed like I would always get stuck. Like Rich and I would do a fair share of law and crime stuff together, and like you get that stretch of foundational witnesses that are just like,
let's do expert qualifications for half an hour. Yeah. So where did you go to undergrad?
Yeah. It makes for tough TV. So look, there's like the two cases that I'm like probably obviously the most engaged with like right now are probably, it would have to be obviously Karen Read and the other one is Richard Allen, both of which probably have the most toxic I guess you'd call it the most toxic division on social media out of any case I've ever seen ever.
Valo's got to be up there at least right now, because that one.
But I don't know that Valo was that divisive.
That's true. That's good.
Everybody thinks she did it, right? These other cases, but I agree with Bob. Like they're crazy. The people are on widely disparate opinions as to the case and everything about it.
And the polarization so like people are locked in, and the dedication. Man, we all knew that the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and all, man, people love their Hollywood stuff. And this is an investment banker and a cop in Massachusetts. And they are attached.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how much attention that case has garnered, but
it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, look, I've always known that people enjoy true crime content, right? I mean, it was always like kind of documentaries, Discovery ID, Dateline, all that kind of stuff. When it really started to change, and it was really when Allison's standing here in the wings. I didn't see any of it. Allison,
far better.
I know that the habeas. Karen Read's habeas writ was denied.
Shocking.
So,
yeah.
And there, All right. So, and she's telling me the witness list came out as well. So,
Oh, I saw the prosecution's witness list. The big headline of that is Turtle Boy's on it.
oh yeah,
For the state, cooperatively, or is he going to object?
Yeah, I assume it's not cooperatively.
It
right?
can't be cooperatively. Yeah,
So
it's got to be
in Georgia, as we saw in the YSL trial, with I'm forgetting his name now, Woody. If you don't want to
my
cooperate,
favorite witness of all time.
I love the man. The man is literally a cottage industry into himself now. You can go find him down on some Bankhead, something like that. He was required to come to court, and if I remember correctly, they did send out the sheriffs to get him. You can get a material witness warrant in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah,
and I imagine Mr. Boy is going to be not super keen on having to facilitate with state authority.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because one thing the prosecution is probably going to do is say he has to be excluded from the courtroom because he's on the witness list. Now, this is a guy who went to the trial every day, had people stand online for him, and then went on the internet every night to talk about it. So that's real interesting. Now they're going to turn around and say, well, he can't come to the trial. Gee, he's on the witness list. So
yeah. Well, I thought that she had handled that. Like she kind of took the Judge Gull approach and has determined that no one other than legacy media is real media. So, and I think that is a very, very small courtroom.
Intentionally.
Yes, intentionally. Well, I mean, the defense asked for it. Like they asked for the switch of courtroom. So, it's one of those things, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. Because I've personally never seen a courtroom like that where you have the prosecutor's counsel table pushed up against the bench,
right in her lap, basically.
Like you've got the
thing that makes
Darth Vader mask.
You're looking at the other people's notes, man. Yeah, you just are. Like you just are. It's 5 feet. It's insane.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like you got Karen Reed's table sitting right there, and you got John.
No, we need to send them like those Dungeon Master screens from Dungeons and Dragons, and they can like huddle up under the screen and be like, no, you can't see.
Yeah, so it looks like the state's witnesses about 54 deep, which is
including Proctor and Trooper Paul.
I mean, he's going to list all of them.
No, they're going to over-include.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions. That was one of the questions that I had about in terms of, and I think, Josh, we got into it last time. You just want to go downstairs and jump on?
No, you don't need 4 people. I just want to chime in that I suspect that Aiden's lawyer will probably file something, or the defense might file something for an offer of proof or a voir dire to make sure it's not just for the purposes you guys just said.
Look at how better. Yeah, look at how better. Good thing he's not on the Reed defense team.
Which by the way, and I've defended this judge a lot throughout this trial. She gets a lot of flack. She gets
she gets overly.
Some of it's a little misogynist, if you want to ask me. But I did not understand her order saying Betterow couldn't be on the Karen Reed defense team. Like, can't the clients waive a potential conflict? Like, I didn't understand that at all.
Had I been in Mr. Betterow's shoes, who is a fine lawyer.
Yeah, he's a good lawyer.
A fine lawyer. I might have approached it a little bit more understanding that this is not just high profile, but there may be some push. And belt and suspended it with pre-existing waivers of everybody, signed, submitted. We've already addressed that. No, we thought of that already. Of course, we took that into consideration, and here's how we addressed it. Because now, with those very reasonable things they could have done for a more fulsome application.
I see. That's a good point. I take your point in that, because they did sort of just have Yannetti
the normal thing that you never get shut down by.
Yeah.
If Rich wanted to come down to Atlanta, I'd be like, yeah, man, here, you fill out the paperwork, you send in the check, whatever, done.
Sponsored. Yeah.
When
I saw that he had filed his Pro Hoc application, I immediately thought that they were going to try to keep him out on a conflict. And I assumed that he had Aiden waive, but I still thought that it would be brought up, and it was. But that's what surprised me about it, because it wasn't on emotion an emotion in opposition. The way that Brennan ended up doing it is he just brought it up as an aside at the end of his argument, that was not related to Betterow being admitted pro hoc at all. And beyond that, Judge Cannoni didn't file anything sua sponte. He was denied without any kind of due process in terms of him being able to address anything.
But
that was what really surprised me.
Did he submit a request for a hearing?
I mean, probably not. I don't know.
So it's one of those things where, man, I get it, but if you're gonna go fight nuke stop because the guns are out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to make a thorough record for appeal. Like if you want to appeal on the ground that she wasn't allowed the lawyers, then you have to have all that stuff submitted.
Yep.
Josh is right about that.
And not to toot the federal guys, I am not a federal guy. I do some federal, but the people that come out of like the Department of Justice, those AUSAs, who they get trained on these checklists. And they are beyond thorough. You wonder why federal prosecution is so complex? They've been burned by every good lawyer for 100 years, and they have a list of how to stop that. So when they would be, if you'd had a really deeply experienced kind of federal person, I think that might have been a more fulsome application. Which sucks.
But my counter to that is he did file the application. She had Yannetti file the affidavit, and I mean, there is always that fear in terms of if you're Judge Cannoni that you've got a Sixth Amendment problem because you are denying him his counsel of choice or her counsel of choice, as it were. And like she made findings. I mean, she made findings which for the appellate record are fine, but I mean, you have to consider that depending on how this thing goes down at the end of the game, whether or not that's going to be an issue and whether or not what he had filed was sufficient enough to warrant at least him having the opportunity to, because she was basically saying, I know you're telling me that you have this information and that you would never use it, but I really kind of don't believe you. I mean, it was a thing. So I don't know.
I didn't like the other thing I didn't like about her decision. So it's real short. It says the conflict thing. And then she says, there's already 4 defense lawyers.
Yeah.
So what? That's not the biggest number of lawyers by a lot. And she says that, most of them are pro hoc vice, meaning they're from out of state. Well, of course, the whole case is attacking the Commonwealth of Massachusetts police system. Of course, they're out of state lawyers.
Right.
But that doesn't matter either.
And that's not been emphasized enough. That what Rich is saying has not been emphasized enough. These lawyers are going to war with the authorities, calling them out to their face for allegations that are criminal. Right. They have purpose. They knew they are under threat by the existential system.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. When you're a lawyer,
it's a huge deal. I mean, like when I've gone out of state and tried a case, like for instance, we had our case where it was a, quadruple homicide case, and it was a death penalty case that we tried in Omaha. We came in on pro hoc and it was a war, but I came in knowing, because exactly to Rich's point, I could go scorched earth because I didn't have to play nice. It wasn't my jurisdiction. I didn't have to deal with those prosecutors. I didn't have to deal with those cops. I didn't have to deal with those judges. So it really opens up a lot of leeway for you to go in and probably litigate harder than I would. Harder is not the right word, but more aggressively than I would have on my home court.
I don't doubt it at all. You're going to be naturally more untethered to fundamental concerns about self-preservation, which are almost impossible to fully waive.
Yeah.
Like if you're in your county, we have 159 counties in Georgia. I practice extensively in about 5 of them. I've lived in 2 of them for almost my entire life. I make very good living there. I can't go get into a fight to the level that this case involves.
Yeah.
Because of the allegations, without fundamentally affecting the well-being of my family for the rest of my life. And that's precisely why lawyers have big networks of great lawyers. And Rich be the first one to tell you, he gets brought places, he brings people to him.
Yep.
It's part of that dynamic. Same in crime.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So yeah, that's an interesting aspect. All right. So there's this video that I want you both to watch. Rich has not seen it. Josh, I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh yeah, no, I did. So what Vinny and I talked about last night, I've been talking about it today.
The taillight thing? Are you?
Oh no, sorry. I thought you were talking about the bridge. No, the taillight thing. I've just seen some screen caps and discussion of. I'm looking forward.
All right, it's worth a view. Now, in terms of evidentiary value, it has none. Obviously, it's just a guy, right?
And he suggested this last time. I was like, go get this.
Exactly. Sorry. So he did maybe he was watching our live. So I went to his channel, and because I never use somebody else's content without asking them permission to use it, he said, absolutely. I want you guys to watch it because it's instructive. Because the one thing that again, Josh, you and I talked about it, like, go get the goddamn thing and see how it works. Can we finally get somebody? So that's exactly what this guy does. And it's the exact model. And I think it's worth us taking a peek. It's only, I'm going to play it on like 1.5. So it'll be like 5 minutes. And if you guys want me to pause as it's going, just give me the high sign. I'll pause it. But it's pretty interesting. All right. I want to pull it up and we're all going to watch it because it's enlightening. Like, and I want to get your thoughts on it after it's done, what you would do with it if you were defense counsel on this thing. All right. So he's got the exact model, year and model, okay, of the Lexus in question. It's like he laid out his comforter from his bed.
I don't think I'm going to be able to smash it out.
Does he tell us how much it cost? Yeah, there you go, buddy. Boom.
That's with the hammer. Look how thick this thing is. These taillights are extremely thick.
Very thick.
This one was already busted. That's why it was easy to shatter with the hammer.
Okay, so that one was cracked already.
Yeah, so
Lexus
that one
LX5.
That one has the little that it looked like a part of it was cracked out in this portion, like right around in here, like right. If you guys can see the mouse, it looked like there was a crack there. It's less. This part of it is not as compelling to me.
No, I'm waiting to see where he goes with it.
Yeah,
what I would do. Yeah,
this is where it gets interesting.
570 from a 2021. If you just pull it off, that's how you get the big piece. Just see what color it lights up as.
This is where it gets interesting.
All the red is gone. There's no red on this taillight anymore. Even the side marker light is so bright that it looks white.
Spectrum.
As you can clearly see, it's red. All the lights are red.
Yeah, it's red.
That's the brake light.
Red or amber.
They're just so bright red. They're clearly red. See what happens when smashed the diffuser.
That's LED, so the actual bulbs themselves are tiny.
Correct.
And can change colors. There's all kinds of programmable, but they're not that.
I can't even break this chrome piece off there. That is so strong. That thing is thick. I can't even break it. There's no possible way an arm did that. Especially breaking that chrome centerpiece. All right. Now with the diffuser off there, look at the taillight. That's all broken out right there. That's broken. When I move the diffuser, watch the light move. Now the light's gone because there is no bulbs back there. The only thing that makes the lights go down the taillight are these plastic pieces that have the bubble. Without that, the light does not go down the taillight. Now watch, I'll snake this diffuser back in there and the light will follow it down to where the end of it's broken off. Look, either if that light was broken in John's driveway, there would be no light going down the taillight whatsoever, and it sure would not be white. The red is almost a translucent red. Now watch, I'll take the diffuser part out of it and the light disappears. It's because all the light is up at the top and it shines down on that clear piece and the bubbles makes it reflect. This is what the taillight would have looked like with the plastic pieces that they showed on in the trial that would have been missing from the taillight. There would have only been two small lights coming from the top.
But it looks cleaner.
Forward, please. Thank you.
Red.
And one more. You can see the white light shine. Stop. You can see it clearly missing. You can't plant something that's already gone. And the reason why you see white, it is a red taillight cover, and when the red is missing or gone, as it is in this case, the white bulb still shines, and that's why it shines.
I see that there's white shining through.
The defense position.
It's my memory.
This is what the taillight would have looked like with the plastic pieces that they showed on in the trial that would have been missing from the taillight. There would have only been two small lights coming from the top.
But it looks cleaner.
Forward, please. Thank you.
Red.
And one more. You can see the white light shine. Stop. You can see it clearly missing. You can't plant something that's already gone. And the reason why you see white, it is a red taillight cover, and when the red is missing or gone, as it is in this case, the white bulb still shines, and that's why it shines.
I see that there's white shining through.
The defense position.
It's my memory.
Trooper Proctor, with regard to this ring video, how was this? Now, Trooper Proctor, with regard to this video, you've seen this before, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, the point, his attention to what may be
Crash of the white snow.
is going to be running from there for a moment.
So there you go.
Habeas petition for the immediate.
Oh, look, it's Michael Bryant and Linda.
I know those guys.
Yeah, our old buddies from good old Law and Crime. So what did you think, fellas? Let me get your initial reactions. Had either of you seen that prior to?
I had not seen it. I had heard about it.
Okay, so Josh, you go first. What do you think of that? What are you doing with that if you're defense counsel, if anything?
Oh, I'm defense counsel. I'm going to talk about this entire light issue. I'm going to argue about it. I'm going to just keep talking about it. Doesn't matter how many points I'm going to consume time on the issue. because you don't have an obligation to prove affirmative stuff from the initial position defending a case. The state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The entirety of the alibi, the entirety of the story about 34, all of that stuff, you have to show it. You have to show it to a sufficiency where a juror goes, man, there's something there. That's the burden of proof that people aren't necessarily grasping in the online discussion. They're thinking that some of these things just have to be so rock solid. A successful defense doesn't have to prove anything. It has to show that the state, their version, has enough questions that you can't support a conviction. And that's what consuming the attention span, I would argue, all kinds of stuff about how it was or was not broken, when it was or was not broken, the fact that the video is being flipped. Just talk about it. Keep talking about it.
Rich?
So I don't find that video in itself compelling. I mean, first of all, I don't know who that guy is. All I know about him is he went to the University of Kentucky. I can tell from his shirt.
Or at least he's a fan.
Or he's a fan. He's smashing a taillight on a bed, so it's not on a car, it's not outside, it's not in a snowstorm. I don't find it compelling. Here's my point about these experts. If I was defending this case, and I believed in my heart that it was that the prosecution's theory of the case was physically impossible. That's what I've heard. That's what everybody says online. It's physically impossible that this guy was hit by a car. The injuries don't match. The taillight damage doesn't make any sense. It's physically impossible. I would go out and hire the best expert witness I could find who would prepare a detailed report, including whatever information he has or she has about the taillight, about the injuries, about the scene of the crime. And I would pay that expert more money than I pay Alan Jackson, because it's more important. That witness is more important than the lawyer. And I would defend the case that way. I wouldn't rely on some hand-me-down witness from an investigation that didn't go anywhere. I wouldn't rely on some guy on his bed smashing a thing with a hammer. If that is their case, I don't understand why they never went and got an expert witness, a real expert witness.
And I think that they would have to, and it's the conversation we had a couple weeks ago, Bob. You go buy one of these.
Yes.
Yes.
You
and
buy
bring
one.
It
you actually buy 5 or 10 of them. And you bring them into court after having a good long play in the office with it and figuring out exactly how these tactile things work. That is almost certainly polycarbonate plastic. There's more studies on how polycarbonate plastic works. You fill a warehouse with scientists on polycarbonate. Then you've got to understand what's been studied in courts more than anything: car accidents. You know how many there's probably experts upon experts upon experts on the fundamental mechanics of polycarbonate light emitting diodes. And I've used lighting experts to talk about how when light is emitted from an LED, these are the different ways it's picked up by the photovoltaic sensors in the camera. And if you get one of those videos and you let me play with my knobs for a little bit, eat me a nice lake trout sub, I can show you that all the whites turn into reds, turn into yellows, turn into purples. I can do all kinds of stuff. And again, all of that conversation just goes to benefiting the defense because it dilutes the state's firmness of an event that is, and I think Rich is right, highly suspect and questionable that he was hit by a car and that those injuries were caused by a taillight.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
And you can get like a taillight, get a real taillight expert if
10 of them.
Yeah. And have them do experiments and have them show video of experiments or whatever demonstratives you want. To me, the cause of death is the best part of the defense case in this case. It's so much stronger than there was a conspiracy and he was beaten up by a dog in the basement and then all of law enforcement covered it up. No one believes that. But the prosecution has to prove that the guy was killed by a car. That's where you attack the case. to me.
Yeah, and like so I had Kirk on last week, and I've taken a fair amount of shit for my theory in terms of the way I looked at this case always was exactly what you said, Rich, was that the injuries don't match with what the state's theory of the case is. And my thing was always like, all right, what about the possibility that John maybe just got out of the car? They were in a beef, arguing about something. She was pissed that he was going to a party at 1:00 in the morning. They had the kids at home. They're spatting. She's like, what are they're screaming at each other. Like my wife would be like, what are you doing? Why aren't you just coming home? You're being an a-hole. I'm like, all right, babe, but I'm having a good time with the fella, whatever, acting like an idiot. I get out of the car. Like maybe I do throw the rocks glass that I took from the bar because I forgot to leave it there because I blew, my BAC is a 0.276. I'm hammered and I whip it at the back of the thing. It cracks it. And in the process of doing that, I'm inebriated. It's slippery out because it's the beginning of a nor'easter. There's snow on the ground, and I just lose both my feet from underneath me, and I full blown body slam myself on my back, and my head smashes the pavement. I'm massively concussed. I'm able to get up, and I stumble and fall into the yard. That, like, to me, like, that is the easiest way. Because I know that
selling that as the defense is hard because the state's case, it's a little bit of a moving target again. We know how they're going to present the vast majority of it, but the defense, I don't like the idea that the defense is tied to the overtness of he got his ass beat inside this. No, man.
That's impossible to sell. You're never selling 12 jurors on that, ever.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's the fact that the truth lies arguably somewhere in between in a story that does it make sense? It could. And that's the defense. Because just like you're saying, we've seen more videos of drunk people doing things that otherwise are completely inexplicable. It happens all the time. Man, you wouldn't have believed it unless you were there and saw it. That happens all the time. So just like Bob said, did he slip? Did he fall? Was there a fight and an argument outside, but then a slip and a fall? Hold on. Could that mean both sides are kind of both right? Oh, I don't know. Until the state proves beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not a conviction.
Yannetti stood up in opening statement, and the first words out of his mouth were Karen Read was framed. And when he said that, he created a dichotomy. There were two choices for the jury. Either he was framed, she was framed, or she did it. There shouldn't be two choices if you're the defense. There should be 1,000 choices. And you don't know how he died because no one was there. No one saw it. No one knows.
Are either of you familiar with the reptile method and polarizing your case that is primarily taught in the civil arena? That's why I'm looking at Rip. You seen that, the David Ball and all that stuff?
I'm familiar with reptiles, but I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
So there's these trial lawyer training things, and we have these crazy meetings, and we believe in books and One of the very hip, popular trends in plaintiff's law that is now trying to be put on some criminal defense work, doesn't quite work, is called polarizing your case and using the reptile method. Reptile method means you have a reptilian brain, so it really is simple choices, and you just need to drill down on what the simple choices are, and you can force people to go one way or another in advocacy. So what you do is you upset your audience and give them only two choices, with the theory being we want to almost delegitimize one choice so bad that accepting the otherwise unbelievable choice suddenly becomes kind of the only choice.
Right.
And that's the one excuse I'll give Yannetti for starting like that, because otherwise it made my stomach turn, because don't limit the options of your jurors. Give them all the room to play they want.
And see, I catch so much shit because like the people that are so firmly entrenched in that something went down in that house, and they want to prove that the Canton PD is corrupt and that Proctor's a giant piece of shit, and that everything that happened was this huge frame job, and they're forgetting the part that matters most is the defense attorney's job is to win. And the easiest way to win this case is not trying to sell the, like you're essentially burden shifting when you're leaning in and your first words out of your mouth is Karen Weed was framed, because every member of that jury is going to be sitting there saying, I'm waiting for it. Prove it. They don't have to prove anything, but you've created a burden for yourself of having to prove it. And what we know is that the evidence is not going to be any different this time around. They haven't gotten any more evidence of proof of a conspiracy that took place in that house. The only way that that's happening, in my estimation, is if somebody in that house, if something did happen in there, if they decide to cave. Short of that, it's not happening. Like, you're not going to be, like, there's not going to be any more evidence. So for me, it's always been, if I'm, and I get it, if because I don't believe that Karen, my personal opinion is, I don't believe that John O'Keefe was struck by a motor vehicle, a 6,000-pound Lexus. I just don't. Like, no one's ever going to convince me of it. And I've watched the state's case. I've seen their evidence. Like, Brennan, I'm sure, will approach it differently. I don't know if he'll do that pre-buttal thing.
Let me ask both of you this. Does the defense have to stay as aggressive with the fight at 34 conspiracy defense in trial 2? Or what happens if they go, never mind, we're going to do this completely differently now?
Wait, does the state have to stay as aggressive?
The defense.
So
I start off and just not even get into a conspiracy. Mention it only as an aside halfway through.
That was my approach.
Yeah, if I was defending the case, I would say reasonable doubt in every sentence I uttered. And there's two great sources of reasonable doubt in this case. Number one is cause of death. I mean, the state's evidence of cause of death is really thin. Like the coroner or whatever she was, the medical examiner testified, she was not convincing. So cause of death, cause of injury is really thin. And then from the defense perspective, you have this gift of the Proctor stuff, which just completely undermines the investigation. And, I don't have a problem with anybody who says this investigation was so poorly done. Forget about corrupt. Was so poorly done by a biased, garbage mouth cop who came to a conclusion 13 seconds into his investigation, because all that stuff's obvious. Yeah. It was so poorly done, I can't get behind. I can't find behind a reasonable doubt, just because this investigation is that bad.
And as a cross-examination technique, Bob, when you were out in Nebraska, did you meet Marin Chalupka or any of the Chalupka? They do a bunch of civil rights and
no.
Legendary family of lawyer. Marin teaches this storybook cross technique that she's refined over decades, where you can actually have officers, if you're trying to establish what Rich is talking about, that it's a substandard investigation. The police become your winning fulcrum, your winning pathway. Officer, tell me about why you became a cop, and you're a good cop, and you know good cop work, and you know bad cop work. So let's talk about this work. And you can have a directed conversation, no matter how angry and obstreperous they are, where you say, and that's good police work, and that's good police work, and that's good police work. And if this had been added, that would be good police work. And if this had been done, that would have been good police work. And you can go through the investigation, find the hundreds of choices that an officer didn't make as well as they should have, didn't follow up, didn't gather, didn't follow procedure, and the officer will literally tell you.
Blowers, all of it.
Right. The officer will literally tell you there was a lot of good police work that didn't get done in this case, but I still want you to believe it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And man, I love that argument.
So here, and like Mandy took my comment off. So where was it? Like, I just want to throw a couple of up. So where was the blood from his head wound? Chloe comes out to do her business and nibbles on his arm. Good theory, Bob. You guys are missing the point. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. You guys are asking to have question answers that the defense does not have to prove. You guys are creating a burden, and I'm talking about the chat, the people that want to prove the conspiracy took place. You're creating a burden for Karen Read. If you want Karen Read to be free, then you don't worry about that, because it's all the state's burden. They're the ones who have to explain how those injuries took place, not the defense. You
And the
guys are
state-
creating
right.
the burden for the defense when you ask those questions.
And the state doesn't have to disprove every defense theory.
Not at
The
all.
defense doesn't have to put Chloe the dog on the stand and disprove that the dog bit him. The state just needs to prove its affirmative case. And I don't mind. I mean, if you want to inject, there's a dog that was running around that somehow was sent off to pasture. There are some people in the house at odd hours. There are these weird pocket dials. I think that's the polite word. There's like a plethora of odd pocket dials in the middle of the night. I don't have a problem with you throwing that stuff in the case to create doubt, to let the jury think what it wants, but don't stand up and say you're going to prove that she was framed, because you can't prove that.
I believe
that's the
you
thing.
got to fulfill the promises you make to the jury.
Your duty is to your client, and if you believe that your client is factually innocent, if you get so married to a concept that you're never going to be able to prove in a court of law, you're doing a disservice to your client. I wish that people would understand that. I get that people that believe that something happened in that house, that they want to expose the corruption. I get it. I really do. Your job as an attorney is to win the case and make sure that your client gets a fair trial. Make sure your client understands the rights. And what you have here is you have a situation where they're trying to prove what happened in that house, and they are. Make no bones about it. They have absolutely created a burden for themselves, a burden that they're never going to be able to meet in terms of 12 jurors agreeing that you've proven to us that that actually happened. Is there all kinds of suspicious shit? Absolutely. If we had a witness on there that could definitively state where I actually believed it, that yes, the 227, whatever time it was, 227 Google search, house long to die in the cold took place, that moves the needle for me massively, because there's no other reason that she would be like Googling that, but
Right.
for that there was a body on the front lawn. So like that, but like I haven't seen that witness. I have not. They did not do that, Gen C. They did not do that.
And people need to
You're
understand.
talking to 3 lawyers, and I did not see that. I did not find Green to be all that compelling, and I found Whiffen to be equally uncompelling. So, like I'm just telling you guys, if you want Karen to be free, you go in and you explain to the jury ad nauseum what the hell reasonable doubt is. You heard Turtle Boy's interview with the juror. If the one thing that you didn't take away from that is that the jury had no idea what reasonable doubt is, I don't know what to tell you.
And also, Bob, that juror said in that interview, we thought all that stuff was a distraction. Like the jury, forget about if they would have let off on 2 of the claims or not. I don't really know what the right answer is on that. But he was pretty clear that the jury didn't think much of the whole conspiracy argument.
And that's, the state is going to be way better this time. The defense needs to up the game, make their case that much stronger, because all of the great unknowns, those tend to benefit the defense because it looks sloppy. The great unknowns don't go for the state. There's not going to be very many great unknowns. There's not going to be any new conversations like we had in the first. Will there be some? Yes. But the state, they've spent an enormous amount of time taking every potential variable and snipping it apart. How they present their case, how they lock it down tighter, more discreet, more impenetrable. They know they've got some terrible witnesses that are going to get pulled apart. You don't think that they don't have a plan to get out from under the horrific testimony that shall come from Mr. Pro? Yeah, they're ready. So if the defense comes out with, hey, we're going to prove this, we need to have this conspiracy, this is the way, I don't think it's going to work. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think the defense has a completely different plan for moving forward, depending on how the state presents their
The only way I can look at it from the 30,000 foot view is that the defense has become just absolutely obsessed with the concept of exonerating Karen Read instead of getting an acquittal in this case. And the problem with that, if I were in Karen's ear, I'd say, all right, look, we just got to get you acquitted on this, because the fact of the matter is if they were able to get an acquittal on this case with the entire conspiracy theory being thrown out there and fully litigated, the people that think that Karen Read hit John O'Keefe are still going to think that Karen Read hit John O'Keefe when she walks out of that courtroom with her hands raised in the air. I've been acquitted. So the point being that if the easiest path to getting that acquittal is to just simply focus on the fact that the state cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that John O'Keefe was struck by a motor vehicle that weighed 6,000 pounds, then that is what you do. That's my opinion on it. If Alice and I were handling this case, you know, and she gives me pushback, she's like, well, how do we explain the taillight in the yard? Lucky Lawfer in his plow. Or I'm willing to say that Proctor spread the shit because he developed tunnel vision. You know, like Rich said, he decided that Karen hit him 13 seconds in, and like old Dean Strang from Making a Murder, it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Cops don't plant evidence on people they think are innocent. They plant it on people they think are guilty, right, and the case needs a boost.
Well, here's the thing about the broken taillight. So I have two reactions to what you just said. The broken taillight doesn't match any injuries. It doesn't match the injury on the arm. Like, I don't really believe that's a dog bite. People can yell at me on the social media. I don't really believe it's a dog bite, but I also don't believe it was caused by a taillight. And I don't think he got hit on the head by a taillight. So the taillight, you know, can become a little less important. Now, here's my controversial theory, Bob, on why the defense is pursuing the conspiracy theory instead of a reasonable doubt case. They don't just want an acquittal. They want book deals. They want movie deals. She wants to be a star, and the conspiracy theory will sell a lot more tickets. That's why I think they are eating it up.
I mean, that's look.
I
think
they're getting those. I get it, but
I think they're getting. Look, my pushback on that is I think they're getting those deals anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I really do. I mean, the case has taken on a life of its own at this point. I don't think that's
it's a better book with the conspiracy, man.
I think that it is a very effective additional part of a comprehensive defense, that being, let's create a giant kerfluffle in the public and make this a subject of public discussion. And that's why I'd be willing to bet all the cooperation with Mr. Boy. That's why they were all gung-ho at that at the beginning. Did they have any idea it was going to unfold like this? No. The defense did not predict how this case unfolded. They managed what they had on the ground, making decisions every day. This is how we're going to advance the overall benefit of our client. And in my opinion, when you've got big issues of corruption and man, that's great to get the public discussing. It's going to benefit your client. And I think that's why they've leaned in. I think Judge just signed that gag order because she should have done that. And Judge Josh would have done that in week 7. As soon as there were crazy blood. Oh, man, there you go. She's
a bit late with that barn door, don't you think?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I hate the lack of transparency in courts, but this would be the example that they're like, no, you're making too much of a deal of this. You're making a public discussion central to the defense. And that could be considered untoward and improper.
And here's my thing. And I disagree with Rich about the ARCA guys. Like, to me, and it surprises me as the civil litigator, you know, I mean, when you get two guys that are hired by neither side, that aren't a hired gun, they're not an employee of the state, and they drop in and they've done testing and they're biomechanical guys, and ARCA is a very, very well-respected organization in terms of what they do. and you've got them just fall in your laps with a report that are saying, look, we've done the testing and we have not been able to come up with any scenario in which we believe that John O'Keefe was struck by a motor vehicle. That is manna from heaven to me. I am leaning entirely on those two guys, to the exclusion of almost everybody other than one person to say that Proctor dumped those taillight pieces in the front yard or some form of that happened. Because to me, you just can't pay for witnesses like that, because you know how you attack those witnesses when they're hired guns, Rich. You know, I mean, it's the first thing you do. How much were you paid? You know, I mean, like, that is always why that proposition that expert witnesses check each other out.
Bob, you're muted.
I'm not muted.
I hear.
You're echoing.
Somebody's got some shit on, and it's not me. Phone, computer. See there, yeah, the tech wizardry. There it is.
Telling you.
I don't know where it's coming from. Close my window. All
I
right,
got
hold
a
on.
camera and that's it.
Let me try to jump off and jump. I'll jump.
All right, so now it's the Rich and Josh show. Whoa, hey, no, you weren't supposed to come in.
All right, let me see. Did that fix it? Or do you get? I'm still hearing a little bit of an echo.
No, that's better.
Is it a
Can
little bit of-
I respond to your ARCA point?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. By the way, so number one, I would totally use the ARCA guys if they fell in my lap. Make no mistake about it. I would totally use them. I'm not saying they shouldn't have been used. My point has been, because I know there's a certain segment of people watching this trial who think they are the bestest, most handsome, most independent, most wonderful, smartest experts in the history of expert witnesses. They're not. They're two ordinary, run-of-the-mill expert witnesses. They were fine. They were fine. They weren't great. The one guy spent time shooting a glass out of a cannon at a car, which is not a theory of the case anybody ever mentioned prior to his testimony. They were fine, but they didn't have all the facts. They didn't have access to all of the evidence, and they're of limited value accordingly. Why not use them and get a hired expert witness that you're allowed to prep? Why rely on experts you're not allowed to prep? Have you ever put on an expert you weren't allowed to prep? By the way, it may turn out that they did prep them a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, Rich, what's your firm's just gut shot annual budget for experts in litigation?
Well, we don't have a firm expert, but on a case like
no. Like, what is your total annual expenditures on experts?
It's millions of dollars.
Yeah. There's a whole world of people got to understand. Experting is an industry,
right? And
anybody can be an expert. If you can get qualified as an expert, you're an expert. Your CV, that's what we're going to talk about. And there are great experts. There are terrible experts. Lots of experts get paid all the time, and they don't get what the lawyer's looking for. And so that's kind of what happened here, except it was the federal government. And you absolutely use the ARCA people, but it's like Rich said, that's not the end of it. Hey, we've got this bonus expert from ARCA who's going to tell you that when the feds investigated, these were the conclusions. There was a big fight to keep these guys out, by the way. Now meet my experts. They reviewed the ARCA guys, and they did their own studies. And look, this is what they're going to say. And guess what? I'm going to hire the smartest, best accented, beautiful, handsome, medical salesperson looking model to come out and go, look at all these incredibly nerdy, thorough tests that we did, spending tons of money that show it's physically impossible to kill somebody without leaving these kind of injuries, or that this would have happened. This is the amount of force that is mandatory before an OEM unblemished thing crap. Like, they will say things that you can't even think about because they spend their whole life testing polycarbonate.
And Rich's winning point on the argument is the fact that you get to prep them. Yeah, like the concept, like, because we hire experts in areas as attorneys that we don't have a firm grasp on. That's one of the purposes of hiring
It is
expert.
the purpose.
Wait, exactly. I am not a DNA expert. I cannot explain to a jury how DNA operates, what it means, how to tell what loci matters and what doesn't, where, how many peaks and alleles and all that shit. I need a guy to explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, how to cross-examine their witness when they come on and to prep me on how to direct examine him when he takes the stand. That's the purpose of prepping your witnesses.
Because we've got to speak their language. They already have a very hard job. They are teaching a sequestered and involuntarily bound group of students something that the students had no interest in taking a class on. And they have to teach them really hard, complicated stuff, not by lecturing, but by being questioned by people with the self-assumed mental illness of being litigators. It's a heck of a task. And really, good experts win and lose your case. Because if you had the right expert come out and be able to prove very easily, well, these are the instances where a death could occur. These are the instances where it couldn't occur. I did all the tests, and these are the instances we have. You're supposed to trust me because I'm the independent expert, and that's the case. Whole case.
Agreed. Like, I mean, and at the end of the day, when we have this situation where you've got these two guys, and the reason that I thought that the video I showed you guys was so
that's a cat.
Oh, like I just thought it was something that, and I tagged Yannetti on Twitter. I'm like, yo, you need to hire an expert to do exactly what this dude did, except have him be an expert and explain in technical terms exactly what you're looking at, because it counters Brennan being able to stare at the jury in court and play that video again and say, look, the white light is right there. It proves that the taillight was broken. If you could put your expert on and say, well, sir, actually, there would be no light because the taillight doesn't operate that way. It becomes a real problem for the state or for the Commonwealth.
By the way, I criticize the state too. Their expert testimony on this point was horrific. Why didn't they hire an expert who can show Alexis backing up and hitting a dummy, and what happens to the taillight? It explodes into a million pieces. Maybe they didn't do that because they couldn't find anyone to say that, but they should have an expert too who does a better job, because what was that guy's name? Trooper Paul?
Trooper Paul? You didn't like Trooper Paul?
Oh my Lord. I mean, that was terrible. He was,
oh my God.
That was rough.
Every bit of that lack of professionalism and seriousness and class and reliability chips away at the state's ability to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's why I say I'm not sure the proof that he was hit by a car gets you past reasonable doubt. I would really, that really to me is the key to the case. And the only reason the prosecution's in on this theory is pieces of taillight. So I am interested, right, Bob, if you have an expert who says, gee, when you break this taillight, it makes two pieces, not, how many were there?
47.
Yeah, not 47, which that actually intuitively makes some sense. I would be very interested in hearing from a real expert that said that and could demonstrate that. If the car is backing up at the miles per hour that this car supposedly was and hit a person weighing what John O'Keefe weighed, this is what would happen in all likelihood to the taillight.
And you know what else that does? When you put that expert on as the defense, it absolutely, in my estimation, proves, if you can get a guy up there that says, okay, we're going to take this taillight, I'm going to put 6,000 pounds of pressure on it. Well, no, John, paid like they'll have to do the numbers, whatever 24 mile, they'll have to do the physics of it, whatever.
Give me some money. I'll have a gel dummy with pig bones built, and we'll go running over. I got 90 acres in North Georgia. We'll go run into 20 of them.
So, but if you can show that, if you could duplicate John O'Keefe standing behind that, either moving slightly or standing still, and he's struck, and whatever damage happens to that taillight, if it's two pieces, if it's 47 pieces, but if it shows that polycarbonate plastic does not splinter off, it destroys their case because they are relying on the fact that they found these small little pieces of the plastic embedded in his sweater. That would indicate to me that they had to have been planted. I mean, if you have that particular witness on it, say that is not how this plastic works. Somebody had, like, you know what I mean? It's like there's so many ways for them to attack this case and get an acquittal, to where, like, it's just I don't
The prosecution,
no jinxing. And listen, it's been an hour. We need to talk about Delphi here before a very incredible, wonderful public defender master has made a corned beef and cabbage in prepper, and I want to eat it.
All right, yeah, and I'm going to see my brother-in-law's band tonight, so I'm really excited about it. And Neil Francis used to be his former keyboard player. The guy's like on the verge of being massive. They're playing a list-only show tonight, so I got to make that. So this is short.
Show this video because it is short.
This just dropped yesterday, and it was released by the defense, and this is the full 43-second video. So here we go.
See, this is the path that we are on. There's no path going there, so we have to go down here.
That's it. So that's the whole thing. So,
and the whole thing was no one had been able to see this because Judge Gull, I disagree with fundamentally on the way that she considers the transparency and the importance of public observation of court proceedings. And this case is an abomination, not because of the facts, that's clear, but because no one believes that this was a fair and reasonable trial in my universe.
And me either. And that's the thing that, you know, because people, I think, don't understand the concept that the question of innocence or guilt or not guilty or guilty is a completely different analysis than whether or not he was given a fair trial in this matter. And the fact of the matter is that he wasn't. And I haven't spoken to one attorney that is familiar with this case that feels that this thing was done on the up and up. And the question, it begs the question, why? I mean, it was Gull who was the one who just was refusing to have hearings, and you don't have to have hearings.
And here's
every motion.
If the state has a good case, they shouldn't hide anything. They shouldn't have to reach. They shouldn't have to aggressively restrict. No, the state's got a good case. It should be sunlight and peaches and it's insane to think of how little anybody could look at this trial and question what was it. It infuriates because guess what? State does have some good facts, but without the integrity of transparency, this just looks like an abuse of someone. It looks like there's a lot more going out there. And I'll tell you, I can see this video being presented by prosecutors in a really one-sided, emotionally wound manner. But I can equally see a defense case with this video that responds to the fact that I don't believe these girls were scared at that moment. I don't believe they were running. I think that they knew the man was there. I believe you can conclude that they probably had seen him before then. The biggest question I have from this video is, why did she turn it on and start videoing?
So I didn't follow this case as closely as you guys did. In fact, I think I was on trial while this trial was happening. So I just have a couple of questions. This video that is now released, was this evidence at trial?
Yes.
But we didn't see it at the time because
no cameras, no coverage, would not share evidence during the trial. There was a fight by lawyers to have the evidence from the trial even released to the public. it has been done under a blanket.
Yeah, that's bad. I'm a huge advocate of cameras in the courtroom. I practice in New York. There's almost never a camera in the courtroom, and a lot in federal court where there's no cameras in the courtroom. I hate it. I think it's bad for transparency. I think it's bad for public confidence in the system. It's hard to defend a trial when you weren't even allowed to watch it, right? It makes you suspicious of what happened to begin with. But I do, not knowing as much as you guys know about the case, I will say, watching that video, those voices do not sound threatened, do not sound like they think they are in danger at all. So whatever that means in terms of the case, I do get that out of that video snippet.
Yeah, and it's a polarizing thing because of the fact that, what they did, Rich, initially is that they took 3 seconds of that video and where you can see the guy in the background there, and they blew it up and they put out this grainy
monster man on the
I remember that video. So he looks like Bigfoot in the background on,
and he looks like he's far away.
Can't make out his face. It's like, so that thing became like, took on a life of its own for 5 years, and that became Bridge Guy. And the prosecutors and law enforcement had come out early on and said, we believe this is the person who committed the crimes. They had multiple sketches come out, and that look like two completely different people. It's like, when you kind of dig into the facts of this case, and I don't know, Josh, if you read the last thing that was filed, which was the motion to reconsider, which I thought was very compelling, and it's a.
But you and I both know that's a punter, and it goes straight up to the Court of Appeals, also known as the Court of Affirmance, and they get to find one of the many ways where, well, any mistakes that were made, those were really harmless because there was overwhelming evidence of guilt in a trial no one could see. There's really not any great records of, and not that you care to go through it even if you could, but this is also a case where, and I just want to bring it in from Read, the conspiracy comes in and how that's magnified a case that otherwise I don't think would have gotten the attention that it has gotten and that it deserves. There is a lot of stuff out there that sounded hilarious and the Odinist and which, man, it's so persistent. There's been so much growth of it. That's how the 34 fight started. And that's where so many other conspiracies start. The existence of a conspiracy may just be a mandatory feature in notable cases these days.
Yeah, well, you're hearing, right? Aren't we hearing now, even in like Koberger and Mangione, we're hearing about it. So I think you're right. It used to be, you always question the sufficiency of the investigation, right? Every defense does that. Yep. And now we're going to top it off with conspiracy every time.
I think that's really the way we're going. And as a lawyer, you got to understand, you're going to have to deal with it. You didn't create it necessarily, but you've got to deal with it. How you deal with it, because conspiracies evolve over time. I have seen conspiracy theories move from conspiracy to reality. We all have. Does it happen all the time? No. Are most conspiracy theories completely insane? Yeah. Most of them really are. Simple things explain simple things. But
and with that, I could not have enjoyed this conversation any more than I did. This is exactly what I was hoping it would be. You guys were phenomenal. See, this is what 3 lawyers having a spirited conversation about the law actually sounds like. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you guys are both great. I hope you'll come back regularly. I think we made some pretty good content in the last hour. You're both gentlemen. You're both scholars. And I thank you both for hanging with me tonight.
Loved it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's awesome. And I'm one of Rich's biggest fans. Rich was one of the first people I ever met. He happened to be at Court TV during like one of the first months I had ever shown up there. And he is a gentleman. He is truly a knowledgeable and experienced lawyer that shares his knowledge with other lawyers. And that is something a lot of guys in his position wouldn't give 2 flips about. They'd be hanging out, doing the yacht, boat, blah, blah, blah. No.
Where did I put my yacht?
It's in your hair, isn't that? You like
Yeah,
bend
it's in
over and
your-
just steams
in
right
that-
out. It's
that
called the
hair of yours.
SS. Josh is jealous of my hair.
Thank you, Josh. Well,
All right,
Josh,
guys.
Josh is the
Awesome,
best.
Bob.
See you
Thank
guys.
so much.
You guys are awesome, man. Thank you both. All right, those guys are the best. Like, you guys have to be open to full conversations of this. Like, I've told you guys a million times, if you follow our channel, look, I think Karen Read is absolutely positively innocent. So, like, but I loved having that conversation where we get to hear both sides of it, right? I like that kind of conversation is the thing that is missing all over YouTube. Don't be mad because somebody has a different opinion than you. Argue the points, make the points. So I thought it was great. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I plan on, like, I love having people on the opposite side or that have differing opinions on this show, because that's what makes for interesting conversation. Like, three people just talk, like, and you, Little Green, that's exactly the point. You are allowed to disagree. That is absolutely your right to strongly, firmly disagree. As far as wanting Karen to win the case, I'm just telling you, I'm right. Like, and I want to see her get acquitted. And I just fear that if they keep doing this thing, I mean, if we get the same result, if we get another mistrial, and then the Commonwealth is like, we're going to try her again. I mean, where are we at that point? I get that everybody wants to out Canton for being the pieces of shit that they are. We all know who they are. We know that they are corrupt as hell. We know it. It can't be proven at the expense of Karen Read. I guess that's my entire point. I love you guys, mods. I love you for all your work today. You guys are the best. The best, the best. I couldn't do this without you. Mandy and Tracy, I adore you both. Thank you for hanging with me all day. And you guys, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Please give a like on the way out. It makes such a big difference in getting the things that Allison and I, for as much, I want to give you just an idea. So for as much Delphi coverage as we have, and I would say that we have more than anyone. If you were to Google, just go into Google and put in full bridge guy video, we are not even showing up. And we have more Delphi coverage, more Richard Allen coverage than any other YouTube channel by far. That's what the liking does. When you like it, it hits the algo, it gets picked up in searches. We need you guys to do that. We love you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times over, because without you, I'm just an old man talking about a lot of cases. See you tomorrow.